I've been eating a carnivore diet for a bit over 3 years, and while I've had amazing changes to my health, I'm so much better than I was 3 years ago. There's a couple of things that just don't seem to be sorting themselves out, and they go together. One of them is the lack of weight loss. I still have at least probably 20 to 25 kilos to drop. And the other is insulin resistance and pre-diabetes. But I have a plan. I've learned a lot, and I've put together a plan that I am incredibly excited about and incredibly optimistic about. And so today I'm going to tell you what I'm doing and why. Hi there, my name is Sue. Welcome to my channel. As I said, I have been eating a carnivore diet now for a bit over 3 years. So it was 3 years in May of this year, 2025. And as I said, I've had some fantastic health benefits and changes to my health. I had a lot going on when I started. If you've not followed my journey, I've got a whole bunch of videos behind this one where I'm talking about the things that were going on with me and the many problems and frustrations that I've had through this carnivore journey, but I feel like I'm kind of on the other end of a lot of it now. But the thing that hasn't really changed so far is my weight. I have got smaller. I've had body recomposition, obviously, and less inflammation. And so my clothing sizes have gone down by about 2 sizes. And so I'm happy with that. But obviously there's a lot more to go. And I have had problems with my insulin. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video, and how I'm planning on resolving that, and what my plan is, and how excited I am. And so that's it. So I just want to say that when I recorded this video, I recorded this whole video earlier, and the first part for some reason had no sound. So I am re-recording that. So I'm hoping that it ends up somewhat cohesive, the beginning and the later on piece. If I double up on a couple of things, please forgive me. Technical challenges, I have no idea why it did that, but it really pissed me off when I realised. So here I am re-recording the beginning of my video. As I said, I've been eating a carnivore diet now for just over 3 years. So I started in May of 2022, and it is now September, the 1st of September, 2025. As I said, I have not lost a whole lot of weight on carnivore. Lost a little bit on the scales, not much though. My clothing sizes have gone down by a couple of sizes though, so there has been some definite body recomposition over the time. I'm definitely very postmenopausal, and I am 61 years old. So I'm at that kind of difficult age where sometimes things don't work quite as we might expect. I've just had an insulin test done just recently, and the numbers were not great. I've had a few insulin tests done since I've been on carnivore. The first was in September of 2023, and then the most recent was 2 weeks ago, and I'll talk about those numbers a bit later. But basically what this most recent test showed was that I am very much pre-diabetic, still very much insulin resistant, and my numbers were better the last time I was tested. I think they've been very up and down, and that's one of the things that, because I've tracked some of this stuff, that it's helped me to realise what's actually going on. And that's why I'm at a point now, starting today, where I have a plan and I'm really excited, and I know that it's going to work. There might be a little bit of tweaking involved, and there might be a little bit more learning maybe somewhere, but I'm sure there'll be more learning somewhere. But I know that what I'm about to do is going to make a difference to my insulin levels and to my weight. I just know it. In fact, I actually listened to an astrology video this morning. It was an astrologer I've not come across before. She popped up in my feed just as I was getting into the sauna this morning. And so I listened to her video, and everything she was saying in there was just talking to me exactly where I am right now, where I know that I'm going. And it's just provided even more certainty that I'm on the right track. I'm so excited about what I'm doing that I can hardly sit still. I've had trouble sleeping, and because I just know, it feels like my whole life has kind of led up to this point, and this is something that is going to be really cool, not only for me, but for others as well. So what I have learned is that insulin is the key to whether we gain weight or lose weight. Insulin is the master hormone that controls everything. It controls our thyroid, and it controls our sex hormones, and all of the other hormones in our bodies. And when our insulin levels aren't right, nothing's right. Even I've done videos just recently where I was talking about my ferritin being high, and so I've been working for the last 3 months to get my ferritin down, and I had a fantastic result. I've been taking resveratrol, which is obviously helping massively, and donating some blood. And so my result from that was way better than I thought. I've still got a little way to go, but my question in my mind was, because you listen to other people and they're talking about, well, if your ferritin's high, just keep going and donating blood, and that'll keep it low. But our bodies shouldn't be accumulating iron. And if they are, then there's a problem. It means some people have a genetic condition called hemochromatosis. I don't have that, as far as I know. It hasn't been a problem in the past, but all of a sudden is now. It's to do with insulin. Insulin and ferritin very much cross paths, and I suspect that it's the insulin resistance. When insulin is dysregulated or not the way that it should be, then I think that we're more likely to store iron in our bodies, and then our ferritin is going to be higher. So that's my thoughts on that right now. And so I'm pretty sure that if I get my insulin under control, then my body will stop accumulating excess iron. We'll see, but that's my thinking at the moment. As I said, my insulin tests have been varied quite a lot over the last couple of years. They have been between 10 IU per litre and 17, so that's quite a big variation. And it hasn't been a downward trajectory. It's kind of been up, down, up, down, up, down, depending on what I'm doing with my diet. And so, as I said, the tracking has been really important, and recording what I'm doing means that I am able to go back and have a look at my blood tests and work out what I was doing at that time and see what's actually created the change. Now, for me, it seems that eating too much fat is a problem for my insulin. This goes against what we're taught and told by so many people in the carnivore community, including a lot of the carnivore doctors. You get told by some people, eat a stick of butter a day, eat butter before you go to bed, make sure you have lots of fat, and, eat the fatty meat and eat the ribeyes and all the rest of it. But what I have realised is that for some of us, maybe a lot of us, I'm not really sure, but at least for some of us, that doesn't work. And in fact can have the opposite effect. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit further down the video, further along in the video. So I have a copy of Ken Berry's Common Sense Labs book, and that book I highly recommend to anyone who really wants to take control of their health. If you rely on your doctor to tell you whether your labs are good or not, and the laboratory, that can be a bit misleading because the reference ranges that they have aren't accurate. So there are optimal ranges, and then there are the ranges that they have on those lab reports. The Common Sense Labs book, it was written by Dr. Ken Berry and a lady whose name I can never remember. It gives you all the optimal ranges. And so I find it really useful, because that way I know what I'm aiming for and how far out I am. So I'll pop a link to the Common Sense Labs book under the video, so if you want to go and check that out. But according to the book, our fasting insulin levels, it says very good, is between 2 and 8 IU per mil, and optimal is under 5. So if you're under 5, your insulin levels are perfect and you don't need to worry about them at all. If they're between 5 and 8, they're good. So that's very good, but not optimal. And then if they're over 8 and the higher they go, the kind of worse condition you're in with your insulin. So My levels, as I said, have been between 10 and 17.5 since I've been measuring them. I didn't have any insulin tests done prior to carnivore, so I don't know what they were prior. I suspect that they were probably worse. And I think that I've probably been insulin resistant for a very, very, very long time, maybe all of my adult life, basically, when I look back at the way things have been. Now, but let's have a look at how the conversion goes, and I'll explain a bit about my levels and where they've been. So if you are in New Zealand, or Australia is probably the same, maybe the UK, I'm not really sure, but if your insulin test is coming back in picomoles per litre, and you want to convert it to IU per milliliter, you need to divide your picomoles per litre by 6.0. Okay, so that is how it works. Now, I'm just going to get my notes back up here. So I've actually just set up in my spreadsheet that I've got with all my tracking information, I've just actually set up a sheet where I can put all my insulin test results in, and then it automatically converts and works out my HOMA IR and all that sort of stuff, so that I don't have to do it all manually. And so, all right, so what I have on my spreadsheet, I'll just tell you pretty much where I've been. So in September of 2023, that was my first insulin test, and my levels came back at 13.6. My HOMA IR, so this is the measure of insulin resistance, remember? So as I said, if you're over 2.9, you're heading towards diabetes, and my level then was 3.03. Now, the next test I had done was the 26th of February 24, and it came in at 26, not 26, 76 or 12.6 IRUI per millilitres. I didn't get a blood glucose test then done that time by the looks of things, so I don't have my HOMA IR for that one, but it would have been lower, obviously. So it would have been probably closer to that 2.9, that kind of cut off for the diabetes. Then in April of 24, so that was, February of 24. And then in April of 24, so about 6 weeks later, I went and had another test done, and I came back at 105, which converts to 17.5. And my blood glucose was 6.3. So that gave me a HOMA IR of 4.9. So it had just gone up massively. And you know what I had been doing in between those times? And I had done 6 weeks on a high-fat carnivore diet. So I was eating 80-20. Well, that was the reason I had the insulin test done, because I expected my insulin to have lowered even more. And it didn't. It went up massively. It went up from 12 to 17.5. And I was like, what the hell? So I stopped the high-fat diet. The reason that I tried it was because I've been listening to Steph Person on YouTube. And I mean, she's a huge advocate for high-fat carnivore. And then you listen to a lot of the other carnivore influencers, and, they're talking about, eating sticks of butter and to fix your thyroid and to fix all these hormonal things, you need to eat more fat. And so that's what I was doing, was I actually lowered my protein down and increased my fat. And I was tracking everything at that stage, and feeling good. I was feeling good, and I was feeling really satiated, but my insulin went up massively. And I didn't understand why. I was like, what the hell? And I did a couple of videos about it. So that's back in April of 2024, so a year and a bit ago. And so then I was confused. I was like, okay. So I just went back to eating my kind of normal carnivore diet. Then my next test was a year later. So the April of this year, 2025, and my insulin came back at 10. So that was quite a lot lower, right? So 17.5 down to 10. 10 was pretty good. That's the one that I thought I was 8.9, but the conversion was wrong. So at that point, my blood glucose was 5.3 and my HOMA IR was 2.35. So I was under that 2.9, and I didn't know about HOMA IR. As I said, I hadn't worked it out before. I didn't understand what that was, but I was pretty happy with where my insulin was at that point. Now, what I had been doing then was because I'd been tracking things, and I went back and had a look. So I had been doing a lower fat carnivore diet where I wasn't adding any fat at all. I had stopped having butter and had stopped having dairy. And then from a few days before that test, I had also started eating earlier in the day. So I was eating breakfast and lunch and then fasting through the night. So, but most of that time, because it was only a few days where I changed my eating window, most of that time was eating the lower fat and no dairy. But I had done no dairy before, apart from butter. Like I'd always been eating butter before. Because I used to add butter to my steaks and things because I eat a lot of rump steak and sirloin and those sorts of things, which tend to be lower fat. I used to add butter, and I mean, I like butter, and didn't understand what was actually going on. So anyway, that's what I'd been doing then. And then this latest test, had gone kind of back to just eating my normal hours. I had been doing a lot of dairy because I've been working to lower my ferritin, which worked really well. And I was consuming cheese with all of my red meat because calcium helps to bind heme iron. And I was also eating kefir as well for my gut. I make it from raw milk here at home. So I've been having a lot of dairy, and I suspect that the cheese, having the cheese plus the kefir was making quite a difference because my bathroom scales died a few months back, probably about 6 months ago. And so I decided not to buy any more straight away and just forget about the weighing side of things for a while. But I have been using the Me360 app to do a scan once a month, which takes all your measurements. And my measurements have gone up 2 months in a row. I did them again this morning and a month ago. That's the first time they've ever gone up since I've been doing those scans. They have traditionally been going down, but the measurements have gone up. So I was like, I think that's just probably a little bit too much dairy. And obviously because my insulin has gone up again, my insulin resistance side of things. So that's the history so far. Now, my plan going forward is that I'm going to have an insulin test done once a month. I'm going to try and do that to track what's actually happening and whether things are working. Now, I've just bought a new set of bathroom scales as well. They are, what other brand? Renfoss, I think they are Renfoss. I'll link to them below. They are really good scales. They Bluetooth to an app, and they give you 13 different metrics. So, your body fat and your fluid and everything else. And, even I looked at a video where they were comparing them to the results from a really expensive scale that is in obviously a doctor's office, functional medicine practitioner's office probably, that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. And some of the measurements were fairly close, fairly accurate. Some of them were a bit out. They tended to be over, so that it overestimated the body fat and things like that. But it doesn't matter. If you're measuring with the same scales all the time, then you get to see whether there's change, and that's what really matters. And so I'm really impressed with these scales. They cost me $50 New Zealand, and they're on Amazon for about $25-$30, something like that, US. So, if you're in America and looking for some scales or wanting to order from Amazon a set of scales, I'll pop a link to them below because I'm super happy with them. They're really good. So anyway, I've got bathroom scales to track everything now, and I'll continue to use the Me360 app every month. So because it does a really good job of your measurements. So back to the insulin and the high fat, because this goes against what so many people in the carnivore community think and believe and tell people. You've got all of these influencers who are saying, eat the fat, eat high fat, but it can cause problems. So if you are already, if you're insulin resistant like me, and especially if you've been insulin resistant for a long time, then fat can cause a problem. Now, something else that made me kind of think that this could be an issue is I came across some information about a genetic variation that I have. So I've kind of dug into my genetics a little bit to kind of try and ascertain what what things might be causing problems with me, because I've had a lot of issues with histamine in the past through this carnivore journey, and also have MTHFR gene variations, which can explain a few things that has gone on. Now, I came across another gene variation, which is RS 11605924AA. So it's homozygous, I think that's the right word, alleles. So you've got two of the same alleles at the end of it, if you know anything. Like the genetic stuff's a little bit complicated. But anyway, what this genetic variation does is it's a genetic predisposition. Now, with the genetic stuff, none of this is set in stone. So there's factors in your life and in your health that kind of trigger these genes to switch on and off, as we may or may not know. And so when it comes to genes, nothing is definite. It's not definitely going to be a problem. But what this gene does is it says that studies suggest that, I'm going to read it off here, genetic predisposition. Studies suggest that individuals with the RS 11605924AA genotype have an increased susceptibility to insulin resistance. This genotype has been associated with a polarization towards pro-inflammatory immune response when exposed to a high-fat diet, which can worsen metabolic effects and increase insulin resistance. So that kind of, to me, explains some stuff. Now, I stumbled across that when I was looking at things a little while ago, and so I thought, okay, so this may be something that until I correct the insulin resistance, it may just be that a high-fat diet makes it worse. I suspect that once my insulin resistance is corrected, I can probably eat higher fat again, but it's when things are out of balance that we have these problems. And so, all of these things that I've learned and that I've gleaned, this is one of my strong points. I can never remember the name of it, but it's a test with like 500,000 questions that some employers put you through to find your strong points and the things that you're really good at. My number one was putting pieces of information together. I can't remember the term for it, but being able to grasp concepts and different bits and pieces from all over the place and create a picture that makes sense. And I'm so happy to have that ability, because it seems to me that I often seem to be able to pull information from all different sources and learn things that other people don't see. And so this is where I'm at. And as I said, I'm so excited because I really am like 1,000,000% sure that I'm on the right track here. As I said, I had some questions that I've been looking for answers for. I've been listening to Ben Bickman, and I've been listening to Candy Frazier from Primal Bod. She doesn't let much out, but there's bits and pieces by listening to some of her interviews that I have gleaned from her. And so with all of this information, as I said, I have come up with a plan. Now, so part of that plan is eating early, because that was something that I had tried, as I said, back in April. And I did get some results for that. But my focus back then was on reversing leptin resistance, which, of course, is part of the whole key. But from my understanding now, I think it's actually the insulin that makes the difference there, or maybe they affect each other. Insulin, from what I'm gathering, is the master hormone that kind of controls and affects everything, all our sex hormones, our thyroid and everything. And if we can get our insulin levels right and reverse the insulin resistance, then that just changes everything. So eating early is part of it. So I'll be eating 2 meals a day most days, and then some days I'll fast through. I'll probably do a longer fast, maybe once a week is my plan, between 24 and 48 hours. But apart from that, I'll be doing 2 meals a day, so breakfast, and then my second meal I'll be eating before 2 p.m. The reason that I ended up stopping it last time was just I hadn't committed myself to it. And with my work schedule, I was still allowing people to book in through that lunchtime space. And so sometimes I'd have breakfast and then I'd end up having dinner, and I just ended up giving up. It just all got too hard. This time, I blocked out that time in my diary. I'm not letting anyone in there. I'm going to eat my second meal. If I have a second meal planned, I'm going to eat it then, and then I'm going to fast through the next morning. So that's definite. I am absolutely determined to do this. Eating outside in the sun, in the sunlight, wherever possible. We're just coming into summer here. So I ate my breakfast outside this morning, first day of spring. It was a beautiful morning. If I can't do that, then I will probably have to eat inside, I guess. But yeah, I might eat near a window with the window open so it lets some light in or something like that. I'll see how I go with that. But with the weather getting better heading into summer, it should be easier. Now, as I said, I'm going to be eating a lower fat carnivore diet. So that doesn't mean low fat. That just means not adding any fat. So I won't be adding any butter. I won't be doing any dairy. Once the kefir that we're consuming now is gone, I think I've still got like 2 litres of milk to go. So once that's gone, then I won't be doing any dairy and I won't be adding any fat. I'll only be eating the fat that comes with my meals, and I won't be eating ribeyes. I will be eating rump and sirloin, which is what we eat most of the time anyway, because that's what we can afford to buy, basically. I'm going to be aiming for higher protein, so probably around 200 grams a day or more of protein. And I will, as I said, be doing fasting, so intermittent fasting from my lunchtime meal through to the next morning, and then one longer fast a week. And I will also be being a bit more strategic with my exercise and doing that at specific times to help with my insulin levels as well, and focusing on kind of natural movements as much as possible. Now, I also would like to track my glucose and my ketones, because I think that there is probably, from listening to Candy, I think that there's probably a strategic range for ketones and glucose. Now, I know that a lot of people on keto diets and on carnivore, when they're trying to lose weight, and I've done this in the past, you're trying to get your ketones as high as possible and your blood glucose as low as possible. I don't know that that's the best strategy, especially long term. If you have cancer or something, then you want to be in those high keto states. But listening to Candy, and I mean, she has got an amazing success rate with her program. Our body is supposed to use both. It needs to use both. So it needs to use glucose and it needs to use ketones. Now, it converts the protein into glucose, and so that's where your glucose comes from. And the ketones don't need to be too high. So I would like to be able to track those. My problem is that the ketone strips are really expensive. I mean, to buy them here in New Zealand, they work out about $2.50 each. So I'll have to see how I go with that. So my plan with this is to be able to teach other people how to do it, because I think that this is information. I know that there are people who have been following my channel who are struggling with weight loss on carnivore, especially menopausal and most postmenopausal women seem to struggle. And I think that it's those of us probably who've been insulin resistant for a long time. And so the insulin is key, and learning how to manage that and get your insulin down is the key to all of us. And then that helps to balance all your other hormones out, and just, and once you learn how to do this, you'll know it for life. And that's the thing. So, if you would like to help me to be able to fund my ketone strips and those sorts of things, I've got links under my video. I'll put my PayPal email in there, and I will also have a link to, like you can buy me a coffee thing or whatever. And so, yeah, or you can join my channel. I mean, if you want to become a member and join my channel, because as I go on, I will possibly be doing some videos on what I'm doing and putting them into the membership side of this. So yes, it's all just super duper exciting. So if you have any comments or any questions at this stage, pop those below the video and I'll get to them as soon as I can. And if you want to follow along with this journey, because it's going to be a beauty, subscribe and like and share and do all that sort of thing. If you're still here, I thank you so much for watching me and listening to me, and I will talk to you again another day. I will be doing updates regularly on this and letting you all know how I'm going. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.